I've had so many failures. Um, like I said, I've tried many things.
Hey everyone, and thanks for tuning in today to the Driven to Better podcast, where everyone you'll hear is driven to make business better. I am your host, Justin Sisley, and on the show today is Antonio Calabrese of Boonle.com. Join us as we talk freelancers, a failed pre-groupon campus program, and we try to finally figure out whether the chicken or the egg comes first. Stay tuned, we've got a great show coming up. Thanks for joining me on the show today, Antonio.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk a little bit about you personally, how you became an entrepreneur, and then go into your business, Boonle.com, that you're running right now. Actually, why don't we start with Boonle? Why don't you give me your elevator pitch on what you're doing with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Boonle is a platform for freelancers to connect with people that need assistance with projects. So other services out there that could be relatable would be Elance or Odesk, and even Fiverr or freelancer.com. But we do things a little bit differently. So the way these freelancing sites typically work is if you need help on a project, you'll go and post your project, and either one of two things will happen. You'll either post a project and you'll receive an influx of bids from freelancers around the world willing to work on your project for a specific price. Or if you use a service like Fiverr, you can go and do your research on various freelancers and pay a specific fee to have them complete the project for you. The way Boonle is flipping this around, and that's kind of how we position this, is that we're really flipping the freelancing industry upside down, is that we're kind of taking the work away from those people who are posting the projects, and we're calling them project authors. So let's say, for example, you're going to go open a coffee shop up, and you need a new logo for your business. Instead of doing the research and seeking out freelancers, you can post your project on Boonle and leave it at that. So you'll put a description of what you're looking for, and your project will be posted. Now, the way this works for freelancers is they can come onto Boonle and simply search for projects within a specific category. So if they're a graphic designer, they can look for logo projects. And once they browse through the projects and they determine that here's a project they want to work on, they can begin working on it immediately. So there's no bidding, there's no contact with the project author, there's really no nothing. They just begin working on the project. And you're asking, so all right, so how does this person get paid? How are they making money, and how is this all working? Just to kind of take a step back on the whole term Boonle. The term boon originally means, by definition, to provide a favor or to give something that's helpful or beneficial. So the original idea was to seek out freelancers who are willing to provide favors to people who need assistance with these projects. Right, so that's why we kind of got rid of the putting up any type of specific pricing or having them bid on these projects. So the way this will work is the freelancer starts to work on the project. Once they complete it and the author says, yes, this is what I'm looking for, the author is then prompted to tip the freelancer. So it would say, Antonio, your project was completed by Justin. Would you like to leave him a tip? And for this type of project, an average tip amount is X. And we'll be prompting the users to leave tips that way. And that's how the freelancers are making money on the site. Now you may be asking why? Why would a freelancer do this, right? And the reason is the freelancing economy is exploding. Just in the US alone, there's over 53 million people who freelance in some capacity. And that doesn't even include the international community. And this number is just growing exponentially. And it's harder and harder to enter the freelance market and to really get your feet wet, or to build a clientele, or to build that portfolio so that you can go out and get these large clients that can actually pay you the amount of money where you can make a living doing what you do best as a freelancer. So using Boonle as a platform to build your skill set, build your portfolio, and make a little bit of money while you're doing it, that's really the key here is to be the beginning platform for freelancers to enter the market in, build themselves up to the point where they're an expert in their field, and then ultimately continue on as a freelancer full time.
Well, you answered. I had a couple questions that I jotted down before the interview, and you got two of them already, which was where
Awesome.
the name come from and how is it different than a Fiverr or a 99 Designs, that sort of thing. So, good job there.
Good.
I wanted to kind of ask though, also, what is your market? I mean, you mentioned somebody starting a coffee shop. Ideally, what's your market for a user? Are we talking about mostly logo stuff? Are we talking about writing, like literally like writing books, or what are we talking about here?
It's really open to anything that can be provided digitally. So any type of digital service. So it can be everything from graphics work to writing, to marketing. Doing SEO work, web design, web development. You name it. If it could be provided digitally without having to be physically present, then we're open to offering these services on Boonle.
And so right now you're on invite only, correct?
Correct. We're in our final stages of development. I don't want to give a specific time frame because we know how that goes when it comes to development, but I would say probably within the next 3 to 6 week time frame, we plan on sending invites out, for the beginning rollout phase, to those who are interested, just so we can do some initial user testing, tweak anything that needs to be tweaked before we open it up to the public.
Okay. And so right now you haven't sent out a single invite yet.
Correct.
You're collecting emails right now. How many emails have you collected so far?
Right now I'm at about 600.
Okay. So you got a pretty good base of users once everything's ready to go live then.
Right. Yeah, and then there's a few other outlets where we plan to bring in some initial users as well that aren't part of that email list. So we're hoping to have about 700 to 1,000 initial users.
Okay. And do you know at all? I guess what I'm looking at on the website is it's simply an email address input. So do you have any idea at all how many of those are freelancers versus requesters, authors?
I would say the majority of them are freelancers.
Okay. So
upwards of probably 90% of the current email list that we have are freelancers.
Okay. So what is your plan then to bring in users? I mean, you're creating a marketplace here, which is what I think is probably the toughest kind of business to start, because you need both suppliers and people to use that supply. So you kind of face the I don't know if you want to call it a chicken or the egg scenario where
Right.
How do you bring in users if you don't have freelancers? How do you bring in freelancers if there's no users? I mean, you've got people signed up who are interested now, but that all hinges on you bringing in users now, or they're all going to leave. So how do you plan on getting those users on board once you launch?
Well, like I said, I would say about 10% are people who are looking to have projects completed. And then we'll also be running some ad campaigns. So when people are, say they're doing a web search for logo design or whatever you may have it, we'll be running those ad campaigns to bring in users as well. And then we'll also be using, other launch sites like Product Hunt and, posting on Reddit and these other outlets where we can generate some other user types. But I would say right now we probably have about 100 projects that will be initially seeded into Boonle right off the bat.
Okay.
And then hopefully we'll be able to generate more users to continue posting after that.
Okay. What about ratings? So how do I know the quality of work? I guess you said it is for mostly entry-level freelancers. Are you planning on doing a rating, or is it just going to be like, you kind of get what you get, and that's the nature of the game using a site like this where everybody's pretty new to the freelance world?
Nope. Actually, there is going to be a rating and a review section, and it's actually going to play a very important part in the platform itself, because there is going to be another element to this site, and right now we're calling it the VIP area. So, and this is going to be the section where what happens when I do build my skill set and I am now an expert freelancer, and I want to start seeking out these larger clients. Where do I go? Well, we don't want them leaving Boonle, so we're going to have this separate section to where you can kind of graduate into. And this is really going to be based on the reviews that you have, the amount of projects that you've completed, and the feedback that we get from the Boonle team looking over their portfolio within Boonle. So once a project is completed and the project author is prompted to tip a producer, which is what we're calling the freelancers, there'll also be a place for writing a review or what we're calling appreciations.
Okay.
So the more appreciations you get, the more projects you complete, producers can achieve different levels. And as they achieve these different levels, they can get closer and closer to accessing this VIP area where they'll be able to access higher quality, higher paying leads.
Okay. Do you worry about two things? One being, if people are used to getting tips, and these tips are, I would imagine, will be probably less than the typical market value of the projects that they're completing.
Sure.
Because some people aren't going to tip at all, some people will tip very little, and some people will probably go over, but I would bet that it'll average out to a little less than market value. Do you worry that these people will complete a few projects and then just leave the site and go to something like an Odesk, an Elance, and 99 Designs, something like that? I
don't, because I believe they might dabble in multiple venues. There's a lot of resources out there in which they can try to pull work from. But I believe Boonle is going to be the easiest place to secure these projects. And when you are working on building a portfolio, having 3 or 4 projects under your belt isn't good enough when you're really trying to position yourself as an expert in your field. So I think they're still going to continue to work towards achieving this highest level on Boonle so that they can get access to this secondary function within Boonle where they can start to get these larger leads that will be paying a higher amount and won't simply be these tips that are being left. So it is a 2-part process that the freelancers have access to.
Okay. And then the all-important question for you is, how do you plan on monetizing this?
Boonle takes 20% of every transaction. So if someone were to leave a $10 tip, we'll take $2.
All right. That makes sense. Tell us a little bit about kind of the origin story. How did you decide, if you have a story, kind of take us to the day where you decided, like, hey, I got this idea, I'm going to make it a business.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in and out of corporate life and entrepreneurial life for probably 10 years now. I've always been an entrepreneur at heart, but the day-to-day life sometimes requires you to go into the corporate space. So I was in there for a while and got into a few businesses that I started, and it didn't really take off. So then I had to go back to corporate life, and it just was never really happy with that lifestyle. So what I ended up doing was one day I woke up, I jumped out of bed, and I had this idea, and I just started writing everything down that I remembered from when I was sleeping. And I decided to just pursue it. I started talking to people about it. I created a survey to figure if there was a need or even a want for this service. And I promoted that survey and gathered a lot of great feedback. And then I just started positioning myself around the right people, people who could help me make this happen and take it to the next level. And by doing so, I ended up being introduced to someone who was willing to provide me with seed money to get this developed. And that's kind of where I am right now.
Are you a developer? Are you writing the code for the website or developing the website, or do you have somebody doing that?
No, I have someone else doing that. And I could backtrack a little, and I did get into the freelance space. If maybe you're questioning, how I came up with the freelance idea. When I did leave the corporate space, I decided to do some freelance web design on my own. So I don't do anything complex when it comes to web development. I do some web design work as a freelancer, I've been doing that for about 3 years. And when I got into the space, I had this same problem. How am I going to find these clients? It was a really slow start. I had a client 1 week, 2 weeks went by without a client, and then I got another client. And it took me some time to build up a clientele where I was able to sustain this full time. And I believe that's really what led me to the Boonle idea.
So the seed money, is that like an angel investment, or what would you consider that, friend and family?
It was more of a friend of a friend. But it was done as it would be with someone I didn't know otherwise. But the seed money is basically for development, and marketing for the initial launch.
Take us back to kind of when you decided to get out of the corporate world. I mean, was that a sudden decision that you were just going to go full time on this, or did that kind of just gradually happen as you were working on this on the side?
Yeah, I think it was gradual. It was a sudden decision for when I got into the freelance space. I mean, I always thought about it. Like I said, I was in and out of the corporate space, always trying to do something on my own, and I had things fail, and I'm not going to complain about that because I learned so much through every endeavor that I ever took on.
Give us a failure. Tell us a story about something you did that just fell on its face.
I've had so many failures. Like I said, I've tried many things. I'll get back to probably mid-2000s. A friend and myself had an idea of running a kind of like a group discount site for college students, and this was pre-Groupon, and actually I think it was right before Groupon launched. It wasn't the exact same type of method that they used when they entered the market, but it was somewhat similar. And we're soliciting businesses to offer these group rates to local students to provide them discounts, because we were college students at the time, and money was really tight, and it was just easier if we could find discounts. So I set a site up myself, and it was pretty amateurish, and we went out, and I had some sales experience, and we went door to door to businesses, and sold a few merchants and got them up on the site to offer these discounts. But then we had this same chicken egg problem, right? It's like, all right, we have a few merchants here, and now how are we going to promote to students? We got some students on the site, but then we only had 2 or 3 merchants on the site, and the whole thing just never gained enough traction on either end to sustain, and we just shut it down. We weren't able to work on it anymore.
Knowing what you know now, what would you have done different to make that a success?
I would have done research on both ends, from both the students and the merchants, to see, one, what are the students looking for, right? What types of discounts they're looking for, what types of merchants they'd like to shop at locally. And then I would go to these specific merchants and see what types of things they'd be willing to offer based on the feedback we got from the students. And then I would build each side up before we actually launched. And I think that's one of the biggest key takeaways I've learned is, if you launch and you have nothing behind you to launch with, then you're going to hear crickets.
Yeah.
And that was a big problem we had. But if you have this massive list that you can promote to right when you launch, and both user types are ready to go, then I think you have a much greater chance at success. And that same scenario happened with another startup I was with, and this was actually a tech startup out of the college I was at. And we had the exact same problem. We couldn't get enough users in, and we didn't launch properly. And I think that's a big problem that a lot of entrepreneurs face is, the strategy behind the launch is just typically not done right.
I agree. It's not a build it and they will come scenario at all. I did an interview with Matt Lee in episode 10, and he was a programmer, and he spent months programming some software, and he had done zero research on seeing how many people would actually be interested in it. So after months of programming this beautiful software nobody wanted to use it, nobody wanted to pay for it, and it was literally just months of his life that he considered kind of wasted. Yeah, he learned a big lesson from it, but still, if you can hear from others first, and you can realize that it's okay to build something that's not great and just get it out there. The Lean Startup by Eric Ries is really key to software companies, because you can spend months and months and even years designing a software to be absolutely perfect, and then realize nobody wants it. So you're much better off putting something out there that's not great but functional, seeing if people like it,
right.
And then if they don't, oh well, you spent a week or two on it and you're done, and you can put it away without having wasted too much time. So very good point. Very good point.
I was actually going to mention the Lean Startup. So anyone who is listening who hasn't heard of the Lean Startup or read that book, if you're an entrepreneur, especially in the tech space, that's a must read, and really study that, because I think it's really important for everyone to grasp that concept.
Definitely. All right, well, going forward then, you said you're going to kind of start launching within the next 3 to 6 weeks. What's the plan to kind of take this to the next level? Is there a next level, I guess, or are you going to kind of just keep going with what you're doing right now and see how it pans out?
No, obviously, I'd like to blow this up as large as I can. So yeah, I hope there's next levels, or at least I plan for there to be. Next steps is to, initial launch with the people we want to bring in up front is step one. And that's kind of the user testing phase, if you will. It's not really going to be a beta, so I don't want to call it a beta, but it's more of just a feedback stage before we take it public. But then after that, then I'll go with a marketing launch, and that will be, press releases, and, every, tech startup founder's dream in getting featured on, Mashable or TechCrunch or something of that nature. And then once we can gain enough traction, that goal is going to be just gaining traction, more users and more users staying on the site, and then, seek additional funding, to where I can, really grow a team and put in a lot more effort, from a marketing standpoint and a development standpoint.
Okay. You mentioned seeking additional funding, and that's something that I personally, every business I've started, has been bootstrapped, and I kind of have a pretty severe aversion to raising funding, because honestly, like, if I develop a business, I don't want other people owning, a majority of it, right, in some cases, because they invested in it. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like you're giving up a lot of your business to get that funding, or do you feel like it's just necessary and you don't mind it?
Well, obviously, I wouldn't want to give up any of my business, right? Who wouldn't want to own 100% of their own business? But when it comes down to if it's necessary for growth, and that's what I need in order to get to the point where I'd like to take the business, then I'm willing, right? Because if I own 100% of a company that's worth $100,000, or I can own 10% of a company that's worth $5 billion, which one are you going to take, right?
Yeah.
Plus, not to mention, when you bring in the right people who are funding you, these people are well connected. They have great resources. They're typically going to be a lot smarter than I am. I never claim to be the smartest person in the room. I'm always trying to surround myself with people who are smarter than me or more experienced than me, and can help me take this to the next level, because I don't know everything. I'm just learning this as I go. I've learned from my failures. I learn on a daily basis as I'm trying to, work this up to the point where I want it to be. But at the end of the day, if I need to give up some of the company to take it onward, then I will.
Okay. It's good advice, and it's, there you can talk to two different people and get two exact opposite reactions to that question.
Sure.
So it's definitely, I think, it seems like in the tech space it's a necessary evil, because it's marketing, I think. Would you agree that the big cost there is marketing?
Yeah, that and employees. If you're not a developer and a marketer yourself, I've been in sales and marketing for probably 10 years now, so I have quite a bit of experience there. But I'm not a developer. So when this goes, I need to be able to pay someone, to help me. I mean, I do have someone on my, I do have another team member, and these people are willing to work with you because you have a vision and they share your vision, and so forth. But at some point, there's a lifestyle that people need to maintain, and if they're really going to be in it full time, money is a necessary evil, right?
Yeah.
You need it to be sustainable, and if a business takes 3 years to get to the point where you're generating enough revenue to fund that yourself just through the revenues of the business, well then that's 3 years where you may be having people who are committed 70% of their time instead of 100%. And to me, in the tech space, it's changing so fast all the time. I think you really need a solid, dedicated team to really stay on top of the market changes to keep progressing forward.
Okay. Yeah. Payroll is huge. Payroll and
Right.
marketing, I guess, would probably be the biggest spends,
Yeah,
I think, for
I
those
think so.
those investments. Well, we learned a lot about your business. We learned about your kind of adventure, starting to be an entrepreneur and now getting to where you are. I've got a couple kind of final questions for you, stuff that should hopefully help our listeners out. And I'm going to start with, is there a person who you kind of look up to as a role model or somebody who has influenced you kind of down your entrepreneurial path?
I don't like to be cliche, but Elon Musk, I think, is a big inspiration to a lot of people right now. Just because he's not really the typical CEO, if you will, that's out there. He seems to have different strategies and sees the good in things. So I think he's a true inspirational leader. And if you don't watch his videos or follow him, I really recommend doing so because he's a very intelligent person, and he has great vision for what he does, and it is very inspiring.
I agree. I look up to him too. Apparently, I didn't read the whole article, but I saw something within the last couple of days here. He's now designing a battery that'll actually power your home. Have you seen anything about that?
Oh, no, I didn't see that yet.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. But if you're listening and you're interested in Elon Musk and what he's doing with Tesla, he's apparently applying that technology now to batteries to power actual homes. So that'll be really interesting to see where he goes with that. What about a book that's inspired you through business or life?
Well, there's a few. Obviously, the Lean Startup, which I mentioned earlier, that was a more recent one. I really enjoyed The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. I think that's a great book to read. And then also The Art of War by Sun Tzu.
Okay.
And that's really just how you interpret it, but you can really apply it to business strategy, and I think that's a great read for anyone getting into business.
Hey everyone, I want to break in quickly to thank one of our partners on the show, Audible.com. For the listeners of the Driven to Better podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. Between my full-time job, a side gig, and this podcast, I just can't find the time to sit down and read. That's where an audiobook comes in. It's the perfect solution for a busy schedule. Now, time spent driving, working out, or running errands is time spent learning with an audiobook. Head to driventobetter.com/book today and get your free audio version of the book we just talked about or any other book you want. Again, that's driventobetter.com/book. All right, back to this awesome interview. What's a business resource that you kind of use with Boonle all the time?
I use Reddit a lot. I live on Product Hunt now.
Okay.
Actually, I think I just installed 2 different applications yesterday just from being on Product Hunt for 5 minutes, and one of them has been probably the best thing I've ever used when it comes to email. I'll give them a plug just because I really enjoy it. It's called Sorted. I found them on it's a Gmail Chrome extension, and it's made my inbox 1,000 times better. So I mean, that's not really Boonle related, but just from managing my workflow on a day-to-day. And there's great resources on there from conversations. But from a learning perspective, I would say Quora is my favorite. I can literally sit on Quora for hours upon hours, because if you just follow topics that are relatable to your industry or to what you have interest in, there's a lot of intelligent people on there that provide very detailed answers to people's questions, and you really can learn a lot from these people. And it's just free advice all the time. And obviously you take advice as you will, and do your own due diligence on it. But it really is a great resource. So if you're not on Quora, I recommend going on there and following some topics that are of interest to you.
Okay. Last question would be, can you give us a piece of advice, something that you've learned along the way that might help an entrepreneur who's just starting out, or even somebody who hasn't jumped into the entrepreneurial world yet?
Yeah, don't listen to naysayers. People are going to tell you no, or your idea sucks, or that it's never going to work, and it can take a toll on you if you hear enough people say that. But just make sure you continue to research your idea and see if it will be viable. Don't go based on just a few friends' opinions or family members' opinions. Really take your time to survey your potential market and see if there is a need for it. And if you find out that there really is, keep those naysayers to the side and keep pushing through.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there's a difference between somebody who is probably not even in your market, would never use your product, telling you it's a bad idea, and somebody who's actually part of your target market. You'll always have people in your life that are just going to kind of guide you towards the normal path of, working that corporate job till you die and hopefully collect a pension or some sort of retirement. It's not like they're out there to hurt you or try and make you do worse in life, but it's just kind of what people have been conditioned to do. But it's important that if you're really driven, you really want to do this entrepreneurial thing, you got to take that advice with a grain of salt, just realize where it's coming from. So very good point. Plug your website and let us know how to get in touch with you if anyone has questions or wants to know more about you or Boonle.
Oh, yeah. Actually, so the website is Boonle.com. We have a fairly large Facebook following, so if you just search up Boonle on Facebook, that's an easy way to get in contact. Or you can email me directly, Antonio@Boonle.com, and feel free to chat with anybody right through email.
All right, fantastic. Well, thanks again, Antonio, for being on the show, and best of luck with Boonle.com.
Yeah, thanks, Justin.
Thanks again for joining us. Remember to head over to driventobetter.com and check out the show notes, where we'll have everything we talked about here today. Don't forget, you can get a free audio version of our guest's recommended book or any other book you like from audible.com by clicking on the link in the show notes. While you're there, I'd also encourage you to check out the DTB Plus Club for exclusive access to premium content. It's totally free, so go to the website for more details. Thanks again. Catch you on the next show.